Everybody. I am so excited today. Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. We're talking about standing up for what you believe in, which is such a Be the Wolf quality. I am here with Austin Lucas. He's a singer-songwriter, a community organizer, a boxing coach, and he is an inspiration to a lot of people. And he's also human and goes through a lot of the same struggles that we all do as he continues more and more to step into who he truly is, who he was born to be, and do the things he was born to do. I must confess, I've known Austin for a very long time. So I've been privy to his journey. Many
3 years, 22 years, something like that.
Something like that.
Our
Yeah.
friendship is definitely old enough to drink. That's for sure.
This is true.
Yeah.
So, Austin, will you tell everybody a little bit about what you've got your fingers in these days?
You mean other than like my back right now?
Yes.
Working out a shoulder injury that's always reoccurring on me. Yeah, I've got a lot of things that I'm always doing. I am a singer-songwriter by trade, so that's like what I do for money, which I hate to describe it like that because it's like I definitely do it because I'm passionate about it. But yeah, I tour all over the world. I make albums. I go and I sing my songs for people, and I use my job and my capacity to travel around to go to new places and network with people. Mostly when I'm going out and about networking with people, it's not people in the music industry. It's basically like other community organizers and different gyms that practice the sports that I'm interested in. I do combat sports, which is basically, I don't know, like when I say combat sports, it's boxing. Boxing is a combat sport. MMA is a combat sport. Kickboxing is a combat sport. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a combat sport. All these things. And of course, there are lots of other types of combat sports. I'm just going to go ahead and stop naming them off because that would take forever. Yeah. I specifically do an art form called Muay Thai, which is originated in Thailand, and I discovered it because I was friends with a lot of like anti-fascist activists and organizers who basically trained Muay Thai as a striking discipline so that they could defend themselves and their communities against like white supremacist groups and stuff like that. I learned about it, obviously a lot of us learned about it through different media outlets and stuff like that, but I didn't get exposed to it like in any measurable way until I was living in the Czech Republic. And that was in 2003 to 2008 when I was there. And pretty much like all of the people that I knew who were interested in like keeping their communities and themselves safe from like Nazi skinheads and various different like white supremacist organizers and stuff like that were training Muay Thai. And I never did it while I was there because I was mostly drinking and I was smoking like 2 packs a day, and I like to do white drugs a lot more than I like to go places and get good at physical activities. Anyway, fast forward to like 2015. I had quit smoking the year before, and I was like slowly trying to get in shape and get healthy. I weighed about 270 pounds or something like that, and I was just really unhappy. A lot of it was tied up in body dysmorphia and a feeling of low self-worth because I am in the music industry and my weight was an issue that managers and record labels, and also even just like journalists and fans would talk about how gross I looked. Literally, people would say that I looked gross, and I was kind of bullied a bit online about it. At any rate, I had it in my head that I needed to do something and change my like my health, and I was having suffering an anxiety episode, or like maybe even like a mental health break in 2014 after I quit smoking, and I felt like everything in my career had gone like had exploded. I lost my entire team, my record label, my agent, my management, and I didn't feel like any of the stuff that I was doing that I had made these big plans for were materializing, and I had nothing that was within my control. So I was looking for some way to control, like to have control in my life, and so I started like exercising and looking at how many calories I was putting into my body, and like I slowly but surely basically found my way towards needing more and more extreme types of workouts in order to like accelerate this like fitness journey that I was on. And that led me to Muay Thai, which was something that other people I knew had already done. And they kept telling me like, hey, if you really want to like, get fit, we've been telling you for years, like go do Muay Thai. And so I did. And I fell in love with it. And I basically just kind of started figuring out who I was through it. It's a
Yeah.
like it's a really what a lot of people. I mean, it's considered to be a blood sport. It's very hyper violent, and it's oftentimes very much dominated by like hyper masculine and like very shitty types of people. But there's a room for femininity in it that doesn't exist in a lot of martial arts, and like the stuff that you wear, there's like a lot of pink and gold lame and different stuff. And as I got better at fighting and stopped being as scared of like the like cis heteronormative like hyper masculine dudes that were the gyms that I was going to, um, I started finding that I really loved this like feminine expression, like that I was having access to. And I started seeing how beautiful the sport was, like in the grace. And I started thinking of myself as a dancer or a ballerina that just is capable of like doing these things that are really effective in a fight to keep
Right.
myself and my community safe.
Well,
So
yeah. There's so many pieces in here that I want to touch on because I think it's so important. Like one of the things is you had your world crashing down and you started, and that's when you started embarking on the fitness journey. And that's a piece about really starting to actually look at what is it that you can control. And the only thing that we can control is ourselves. We can't control the weather. We can't control what other people do, what other people say, all of that. So starting with, and I think this is why a lot of people are very into taking care of their body as a first step for everything else that begins to materialize in a better way. But finding that place of having something you can control and then moving into a place where you get to be somebody of power, because each of us individually, we have so much power within us, and we are bogged down by so many beliefs, so many false things about ourselves, that we look in the mirror and we see something that only we see, nobody else sees, that may be a negative image. So beginning to really turn that around is such a great big first step, and doing it with something that allows you to learn your own form of power. And then I love how you expanded even more into there's feminine and masculine in everything, and so many people get so caught up in this is the feminine way, and this is the right way, and this is the masculine way, and this is the right way. You have to push through and be macho, or you have to just be passive, and these are the two out of balance extremes of the femininity and the masculinity, and there's room for the grace and the power together to create something really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I mean, I think that I would be of the person, or I would be in the camp that believes that gender is a construct, and that like there's really no such thing as masculine or feminine. You know what I mean? Like except for like what we allow it to, you know what I mean, like to exist as. It's one of the many things that like in my opinion, is a collective delusion. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have merit, it doesn't have worth, that there's not like, reasons for people to feel one way or the other, like, and that doesn't mean that there's not beauty in these things that we ascribe to masculinity and to femininity. But the truth of the matter is that like all they really are things that we might find some use from, and things that we may well find no use in. You know what I
They're
mean? Like,
categories.
and and if you like, for example, like I grew up thinking like I really wanted to be, like I wanted to be a mom when I was little. Like that was like the thing I most wanted to be. I mean, I was raised by a single mom. I really loved her, and I really, really wanted to be a mom when I was little. And like I had this very distinct feeling that there was like I had this huge connection with something that was feminine, and like I had that sort of like summarily cut out from my personality, like, and growing up, it's like, I knew that I was queer from the moment like I knew what sexual attraction was. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to be open about it for most of my life because I was afraid of the violence that, you know what I mean,
Right.
like that I might suffer as a result of being open about it. I didn't want to show a lot of my like femininity or the things that I are ascribed to be feminine that I felt inside of myself because I was afraid of like, you know what I mean, like the backlash that I would experience as a result, because I was afraid of the violence of men, like, and uh, as far as it goes, like learning to take up space and like learning to not be afraid of that violence and changing, you know what I mean, like my neurological responses to violence allowed for me to just like start moving towards being able to be whatever the hell I wanted to be at any given moment. And it's people often ask me like, are you masculine? Are you feminine? Are you trans? Are you non-binary? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like at any moment, I sometimes feel very feminine, like, and I sometimes feel very masculine, you know. I oftentimes feel trans, and I also oftentimes don't feel like any gender at all, like,
Yeah.
but this is called gender fluidity, and it's like, it's just kind of this thing that I now allow myself to hang out in that I never would have been able to allow myself to hang out in because I like took the power back from, like from society because you know what I mean? Like I was giving too much of it and I had no control over other people. So I just controlled myself, and that's just slowly but surely become the rule. I
Right.
control how I feel about things. I control who I am and what I want to be and what I want to put forth, and that can change on a daily basis or even from moment to moment.
Well, and the piece that's one of the pieces that's really important, and we talk about like identity, when you change at an identity level, it really shifts everything in your being. So if you feel that you are one thing and the world is telling you that you are not, when you try to be what the world wants you to be, the thing that really screws with us so deeply, and this is with anything, y'all, it's not necessarily about gender, it can be anything, but there becomes this place of shame. It becomes this, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you stuff all of who you really truly feel to be away and try and mold yourself into what the world or other people want you to be, then you feel shame about betraying yourself. And if you do the opposite, where you just be the wolf and be who you're born to be, just be who you are in this moment today, then you might get this shame from the outside. And the thing about the shame from the outside is that is usually other people's shame. It's not actually it doesn't usually actually have anything to do with you. It might be a reflection of the place where they shoved down who they really were. So they can't look at you being your big true self, and then it becomes painful. So they've got to try and make you feel bad. You remember growing up, they were always like, people are in pain if they're trying to make you feel bad. That just tells you that they're ugly inside. And that's, people are telling you kind of a reflection of how they feel about themselves that they may not even be aware of. And so going into that place, and the more you can accept who you are, the happier, I'm going to dare say, happier you will become.
I think that can oftentimes be true. I mean, I think that there are certain things that society still doesn't accept you to be. And I think that unfortunately, a really important component of this is that you can be happier inside and be true to yourself, but be entirely fearful, because unfortunately the world that we live in is not necessarily an open or safe place for people who are being themselves. And of course, you're right, it comes from a place of fear and shame of those other people. But the unfortunate factor to think about is that you can feel so good about who you are on the inside and so true, showing it out in public, and people will respond negatively and often violently towards that. And I mean, obviously, the pieces of legislation that we have running through the houses of our country right now, there's no clearer example of that than the type of repression that is going on based upon around gender and reproductive rights as well. So
yeah. And you're right. And that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. A lot of it's focused on career, but it really is about being true to who you are. And a lot of us growing up, society was even more repressed when we were growing up than it is now. And we didn't have a lot of people being brave and taking that stand for being able to be who you are. And the more people that we do that, and it's not easy, and it does take bravery, because you're right, there can be negative repercussions that are dangerous. But the more people we have doing that, the more people see it, the more it will become normalized and allow space for people to actually be able to be who they really are.
Yeah, and hopefully as time goes on, the the tale will be told in that way. But it's frightening, being who you are. I mean, I've been on a journey since 2014 of sharing who I really am with the world, and it has hurt me monetarily, to start. I'm a country singer, and when you come out as an anti-racist, as a country singer, that's a big deal. When you take a stand against fascism as a country singer, that's a big deal. Like coming out as a queer person, as a country singer, that's a big deal. Like, and all of these things are supplementally also really, really dangerous to be in the martial arts and fight, like combat sports community too. So it's very like interesting because like I actually exist in subsects of the world of like that are very much unwelcoming to folks like me, and yet somehow I managed to still be here. The negative impact on my bottom line and also like potential like physical safety is acute. Like but my overall quality of life is excellent. Like on the day to day. I mean, and that is worth way more, you know what I mean, than almost anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. I mean, and we go back to like pre 2014 and pre the blow up of all the career stuff and all of that. And you had more stereotypical success, I think, probably around that time, right before
Mm-hmm.
everything blew up. And, but inside, it sounds like you were not so happy. And so, I think it's really important in the end when we think about success. What really is success? How do you want to feel in your day-to-day life? Is it that the money and the fame and all that stuff will solve all your problems? Because I'll tell you what, you're still left with you. You'd be sitting in a big old mansion with a whole lot of stuff, and you're still sitting there with you, and you're still stuck with all the things you think and feel, and you still know all the things that you've done and the way you've pushed yourself down. And so, if we look at the trade-off, what do
Yeah.
you take? Yeah.
It's hard to know. I feel like that there are a lot of different questions that you can ask, and like one of the things that in the end doesn't like ever do much is like the could have, would have, should have, or like or
Right.
what if, like I think all of us exist in a world where if we dwell on like what could have been or how things could have been different, then generally speaking we're not like progressing, and we may well like be regressing as a result of it. So for me, I just like I know that I made big moves, I made incremental moves. They all had an impact on the way that my life turned out, and I don't really think I can like I don't think I have any knowledge at all on what my life would be like if I had done this or hadn't done this. I know this. I think that the only thing that could have been different for me is if I would have um, done something to work on my mental health earlier. Like my anxiety disorder is acute. If I would have known that I had like ADHD much earlier and started treating it earlier, I think I would have done a lot better in general. But mostly, like, really my anxiety disorder and like existing in a place where I thought that I was alone in it, that I was the only person who was like this, that I was an alien, and that I couldn't show the world that this is how I felt, like because I was scared that people would look at me and be like, and consider me to be even weirder than I already felt like they thought of me as. So the only like could have, would have, or what would have happened, like what life could have been like, how could it have changed? I just wish that I had done something about this, like mental health issues way, way earlier. Like it just didn't feel like the thing that I needed to do, and it really, really was. You
Well,
know.
yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, there was so much stigma towards it. I remember the first time I went to therapy, And I didn't go because I think I needed therapy. I had no idea that I actually had anxiety until recently when I got rid of it, because I had it from the time I was a baby and I just didn't know, because I didn't know anything different.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about that feeling that you're all alone and you're the only one that goes through that. I literally just this weekend presented and did a talk at a Les Brown event, in conjunction with NAMI, which is National Grassroots Organization for Mental Health. And the conference title, or the summit title, was "You Are Not Alone." So I think it's really important that you bring up that point, and it's important that people that are putting themselves out there are open with the fact that, hey, we struggle with this. Yes, we're being the wolf and we're doing what we're meant to be doing, but we have had these struggles, and sometimes we will still have more struggles, and sometimes we're dealing with it day to day, but we're stepping forward to be the best person that we can be right now, because right now is exactly what matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you think about, it's real, I go back to, you and how long we have known each other. And I think about way back when you were so young, I was so young. And I remember we were just hanging out and you were playing the guitar and you sang a song. And I was like, wow, he's really good. And then years later, when we connected, you were playing a show here in Brooklyn. And I went and I was like, whoa, holy crap. Like, wow, where did this Austin come from? Like, you are so good. And then over the years, as I've seen you more and more times, and it's just like there's such a beautiful presence that you carry on stage that is magnetic and feels loving and welcoming. And also, you're just really good.
Well, I'm glad that you think that it seems loving and welcoming. I don't know, like, I think that most of my life I felt sort of unwelcome and unloved. And I'm not saying that that's true, but I am saying that it's what I felt. And a direct, I don't know, the result of that is that I work really hard to make sure that people can see that they are welcome and loved everywhere I go. And that's one of the reasons why I do the type of like community organizing that I do, and the mental or the like with as far as like combat sports and stuff like that, because it's such an unwelcoming environment, like from the outside looking in, when you haven't ever done it before, and especially if you come from a person that's like of any sort of like marginalized group, So creating spaces that are like safe from the like get go, you know what I mean? Like that, like immediately like show themselves in a measurable way. And I'm not talking about like in like a lip service like way. I'm talking about very much like from the first time that you like walk through the door, you immediately know that the people who are there are seeing you and are going to ask you the types of questions that you need to that need to be asked in order to continue to feel seen, continue to feel safe, and to hopefully continue to want to share that space with those people, because it's really, really difficult to share space with anyone if you can tell that they don't really care. And especially when you come from a background like where you've been marginalized or like subjugated to the like violent or sexual will of like other people around you, Like, when you walk into a space, especially like, because I oftentimes like train a lot of people who are queer and trans and like or non-binary, and I have a lot of like of people who are femme who train with me, and like the thing that like that's important is that a lot of folks who come from these backgrounds who are seeking out uh, martial arts, they're seeking out like some sort of form of self-defense. They come from it from a place of trauma, like, and if you are not set up to uh, pay attention and to understand what types of traumas people come from, then you're going to, from the start, be creating a potentially unsafe environment for those people to show up and train in. So the point is to make sure that you're uh, from starting premise, like being aware of these things and being very careful and knowing each person that is coming through the door, giving them the space and the time that they need to get to know them and know what they need in order to make sure that they don't become triggered while they're there working with you, which can be very difficult.
Right.
If somebody has specific, for example, if they have like an impact trauma, or they have like an abuse trauma, where they've been physically like abused, where they've been beaten up, you know what I mean? Certain types of, for example, grappling can be really awful, you know what I mean? Like for someone who has experienced any type of sexual trauma, and so unless you understand that and you're able to have a skill set, unless you have tools to have the types of interactions with people that allow the space for them to be able to communicate that to you, then you're going to lose people immediately and you're not going to be benefiting them because you're going to be re-triggering them from the start.
Right.
And so you know long story short, it's as a person who wants to have a positive impact with people in their lives, it's I take that premise as much as possible in my live show as well, remembering that everyone that's there is there on a different, they're coming into that room in a different mood. Everyone is you don't know what their day was like before they got there. You don't know what their month was like before they got there, and you certainly don't know what their life was like before they got there. So making it a space that's as inclusive and open as possible, is just, for me, the thing that's the most important. And I guess I'm just trying to explain that these things are core beliefs for me. So I'm going to utilize the same things that I know when I'm for example, trying to teach somebody who has been through something very intense, how to be able to interact in a physical and potentially even violent way. I'm going to take those same premises into just the place where I'm singing too, because people can be traumatized by music also. It's very emotional,
Yeah.
And so as long as people know that they're safe, you know what I mean? From the moment they walk through the door, you can take them on certain journeys that you wouldn't be able to take them on if they didn't know that they were safe. And so the fact that you feel that I'm give a welcoming presence, and you know what I mean? And I make people feel close to me, it just makes me feel really good because it means that I'm succeeding in what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so, you make so many good points, especially about trauma and re-traumatizing people. And the more people become aware of their own trauma and how other people can be traumatized, it allows us to have more fluidity in conversation and acceptance. I think about all my trauma triggers over the years that I had no idea. It was just my way of coping. It was my coping mechanisms and certain situations that re-looped me back into old traumas. And it wasn't until I started healing that until I started finding some things that helped me to feel better, that I was able to transform that and have those loops stop. And when we think about training people in any kind of combat sport, you definitely have the opportunity to trigger those things. And I can see it so clearly, especially a lot of people want to get into these sports so that they can protect themselves because they have been hurt. And so having somebody as a coach be cognizant of that and careful and taking the time to stop and see and understand you is really important. In fact, we think about, growing up, we all need love, right? It's like nutrition. And the components of love, which nobody really talks about, is protection and safety, acceptance, understanding, support, and encouragement. And now I'll say that most parents across the board are doing the best that they can, but a lot of those parents didn't receive those things either. And if you didn't receive them, you might not know how to give them. And so, as a child growing up, you might not have received the protection or the safety, the acceptance, the support, the understanding, the encouragement. And when you did not receive all of those components fully, it's like you have some holes in your cup, so it's hard to keep your cup full.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have somebody that can help you to, put the gold inlay into the cracks of your cup and fill the holes so that you can continue to train, learn, grow, heal, so that you can start to fill your own cup and then eventually let it overflow to others, is a powerful thing. I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What do you have going on musically these days?
I'm touring Europe at the end of April, starting in Ireland and making my way across the UK, parts of Scandinavia, Germany. And then, I don't know, I'm hoping to fight again in the spring a couple of times. You know, I I like consensual violence, so I've been like talking about a lot about combat sports, and I'm really huge into the idea of consent, and I really love joyfully getting punched and kicked and punching and kicking people who consensually have agreed to do that with me. And I like to do it competitively. So I'm hoping. I'm a pretty old fighter. I have like 7 fights so far. I had 4 last summer, and like I'm hoping to at least get like 2 or 3 in this summer, if possible. And while also touring, and I have a record coming out in June, and I'll be doing tour dates around that also in the United States and Canada. And so yeah, it's just like balancing all the stuff. Like I have to make a living, and that requires like going out on the road. And I also really love like coaching people, and I love also training for myself. And I like to I like to get in the ring. I like to corner fighters in the ring. I like just really love like doing that kind of stuff. Um, I like to spread the love and joy that can exist in a consensual environment, even when it's violent. You know what I mean? Like as long as you're doing it because it's like fun for you, you know what I mean? Like then it can be a really wonderful and empowering thing. And like so yeah, I hope that I get to do more of that. And so that's what I've got coming up. I've got tours, I've got records, I've got fights.
Tours, records, and fights.
Yeah.
What else? What else brings you joy? Like I
Mm,
know we've got the helping people be seen or making sure that they feel held and they're seen. Music, of course,
mhm.
helping stand up for what you believe in, helping coach, helping fight or fighting, all of these things. But what's something else that just lights you up?
Mm, I like food. I especially really, really love like South American food, Mexican food. Like I think that anything that comes in a tortilla pretty much is like my best friend. You know, yeah, I don't know, food. I love food. I'm really passionate about eating, especially at any place that is in a grocery store, like any taqueria that's in a grocery store, or any place that's just like a tent,
Mm,
and like with a grill, and they're just like hanging out making stuff like outside. That's what I'm into. I just like really affordable food made with love.
yeah.
I'm like a I'm like the kind of person. My favorite things are always things that like people are like doing because it's like survival and because they love it. Like they're doing it like on the margins, like where they're not like it's not a widespread like huge capitalist endeavor. It's like a thing that they're doing that's sustaining themselves and their family that like they would be unhappy if they were doing anything else, and that's just like why they're doing it, like so
Sounds
yeah.
sounds a little bit like you.
I guess. Yeah.
How do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they get in on the inspiration and love that you dish out?
Oh, I'm on Instagram at Austin Lucas Music, and Facebook at Austin Lucas Music, and Twitter is Austin Lucas IND, and then my website is just austinlucas.com. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty responsive. I say hi to people. I have really bad ADHD, and so like sometimes somebody will write me, and I will just completely forget to write them back. And I always tell people like write me twice, because no better way for me to realize that I should have written you back than to see that there were two messages from you, and the first one I did not respond to, and I'm like, and then I
And so, Austin, if you were going to tell past self, besides seek mental health advice and support and help, if you were going to tell past self or all the people out there one piece of advice, what would you say to all the people or your past self?
never stop learning, uh, and uh, try to be patient with other
Mm.
people and yourself. And um, I don't know. Um, and also never forget that there's a difference between ideologies, and certain ideologies require subjugation and domination, and those ideologies have no merit, and we call them fascism, and they take many, many forms. And anytime you try to pretend that other ideologies out there are somehow similar to that, that's called a false equivalence. It's not real. Uh, and because those other ideologies, they don't require subjugation, domination, torture, and death in order to exist. Uh, um, and fascism does on premise. So never forget.
Never forget. Thank you so much, Austin, for sharing you with us. It's really important that you're here. It's really important what you do and the stands that you make. And I'm so appreciative to know you and to share you with the people that follow me. So thank you.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Bye, everybody. We will
Bye,
see you
people.